Ever wanted to turn government debt into a treasure chest? Well, in 1711, Robert Harley had a brilliant or insane idea. First, let's set the stage. Here's the world our story unfolds in, around 1720, with London right at the heart of it. He creates the South Sea Company, promising trade with Spanish America. Think of it as a startup with zero revenue, but unlimited hype. The company takes over £9 million of government debt, because nothing says sound investment like swapping cash for IOUs from a spendthrift king. In 1713, the Treaty of Utrecht finally gives the South Sea Company what it craves: the Asiento de Negros, a monopoly to sell slaves to Spanish America. Hooray! But trade is limited to one ship per year and a fixed number of slaves. The company's dreams of gold and silver turn into a modest trickle. Still, the company has a foot in the door. Investors sniff opportunity, and the stock price begins a slow, hopeful climb. Now the big move, the road from London to London. In January 1720, John Blunt marches into Parliament with a plan so sweet it should come with a sugar warning: convert government debt into South Sea shares. But Blunt knows that to get his bill passed, he'll need more than charm. So he greases the wheels with cash, stock, and whispered promises of untold riches. The bribes work like a charm. Parliament approves the South Sea Bill, and Blunt's scheme is off to the races. The crowd outside cheers. They smell money. In April 1720, Parliament votes on the South Sea Bill. The air is thick with greed and the smell of freshly printed money. And here's London up close, where our story really plays out. The bill passes with a landslide. MPs who took bribes now look like cats who swallowed canaries, and the entire treasury. King George I signs the bill into law. He doesn't fully understand it, but the word treasure caught his eye. Investors swarmed the Royal Exchange like seagulls spotting a dropped chip. The South Sea share price rockets from £128 to £330 in just 3 months. John Blunt watches from a balcony, grinning like a fox who just discovered the henhouse door is unlocked. His scheme is working better than he dared dream. But the real winners are the bribed MPs, who sell their shares at a huge profit. They count their money with the glee of lottery winners who bought extra tickets. In April 1720, John Blunt opens the first subscription at South Sea House. He accepts government bonds at par, a fancy way of saying, we'll take your old junk and call it gold. Investors swarm South Sea House like bees to a sugar pot. They trade their government bonds for shares, because who wants boring old interest when you can have imaginary riches? Within days, the subscription is oversubscribed. Demand is so high that Blunt could sell shares in a swamp and people would buy. The bubble inflates, ready to pop. John Blunt knows that to pass his bill, he needs friends in high places. Luckily, he has a trunk full of imaginary shares. Aislabie, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, accepts his bribe with a straight face. He's a politician. After all, hypocrisy is in the job description. Secretary Craggs is next in line for a gift. He accepts with a theatrical bow, as if he's receiving a medal, not a bribe. By June 1720, the South Sea share price hits a dizzying £1,050. That's not stock. It's a lottery ticket printed on pure hype. Sir Isaac Newton, the man who figured out gravity, sells his shares early for a tidy profit. He's smart, but then he watches the price climb and climbs. In June 1720, the South Sea Company decides that competition is for losers. They push through the Bubble Act to crush every rival joint stock company in Britain. The act makes it illegal for any other company to raise money like the South Sea Company. Monopoly achieved. Now the only game in town is theirs. King George I signs the Bubble Act into law, probably thinking it's a new recipe for bubbles in his bath. The ink isn't dry before John Blunt starts planning his next scheme. In July 1720, the directors gather in a back room like villains in a pantomime, their hands already greased with gold. While the public chases imaginary gold in South America, the insiders quietly dump their shares like hot potatoes. The public, oblivious, keeps buying shares like there's no tomorrow. Spoiler, tomorrow is coming, and it's bringing a hangover. By August, the share price is on a diet, down to 900 pounds. Investors start sweating through their wigs. The price drops further to 800 pounds. Margin calls arrive like party invitations nobody wanted. Selling turns into a stampede. The South Sea dream is melting faster than ice cream in July. September 1720. The Bank of England, looking like a reluctant superhero, agrees to take over some South Sea debt. Cue dramatic entrance. The bank's directors huddle, whispering, "We can fix this." With a Bank of England. Spoiler, they cannot fix this. Despite the bank's heroic intervention, the share price keeps falling. Investors realize the hero forgot his cape at home. By late September, the share price has crashed to 150 pounds. Investors who bought at pound 1,000 are now weeping into their powdered wigs. Inside the South Sea house, directors like John Blunt watch the chaos from a window, their smug grins replaced by pale panic. Outside, a former investor tears up his share certificate and throws the pieces into the air like confetti at a funeral. December 1720. Parliament decides the best way to fix a financial crisis is to form a committee, because nothing says solution like more politicians in a stuffy room. MPs brandish ledgers like weapons, demanding answers. Witness after witness is dragged in, each one more shifty-eyed than the last. The truth starts leaking like a bad investment. The committee uncovers bribery reaching all the way to King George's ministers. Turns out the South Sea directors were handing out shares like party favors to anyone with a title. January 1721. Parliament's patience runs out. John Blunt, once the genius of the South Sea, now finds himself the star of a very different show. The guards don't stop at Blunt. They round up the whole board, like a very expensive game of musical chairs where the losers lose their estates. Parliament confiscates their estates, hoping to give some money back to the ruined investors. Spoiler, it's like trying to refill the ocean with a teacup. Chancellor Aislabie walks into the king's chambers, resignation letter in hand. His face says, "I'm sorry," but his pocketbook says, "I'm rich." The king accepts the resignation with a sigh, more like a man swatting a fly than losing a minister. Aislabie scurries out, probably already counting his hush money. Outside, a crowd of ruined investors spots Aislabie leaving. They don't cheer, they hiss and shake their empty purses. The ex-chancellor quickens his pace. James Craggs the younger lies in bed, sweating like a man who just remembered he left the iron on, except the iron is his reputation, and the house is on fire. His loyal servant brings a cup of water, but Craggs just stares at the ceiling, calculating whether smallpox or the hangman's noose is the quicker route to oblivion. When the news reaches London, the other directors exchange glances. Well, at least he won't have to sit through the trial. They don't say it aloud, but their faces do. Enter Robert Walpole, stage right. He's the one MP who didn't buy South Sea stock, because he actually read the fine print. Walpole unveils his plan. Transfer South Sea debt to the Bank of England and East India Company. It's like asking two sober friends to hold your drink. Parliament votes yes. The crowd outside hears the news and doesn't riot for once. Walpole has just saved the economy with paperwork. Thomas Guy, a bookish speculator who sold his South Sea stock before the crash, now has a mountain of cash and a guilty conscience. He decides to build something that won't evaporate. Guy buys a plot of land in Southwark, London, cheap, because the bubble burst and everyone's selling. He hires architects and laborers, all grateful for steady work. In a ceremony surrounded by curious onlookers, Guy lays the foundation stone. He taps it with a trowel, and the crowd cheers, a rare moment of joy in a year of ruin. The Bubble Act becomes law in 1720, banning unauthorized joint stock companies. It's like Parliament slamming a door on a party that's already on fire. For over a century, the act stifles new businesses. Entrepreneurs have to get creative or just give up and join the East India Company. The Bubble Act finally gets repealed in 1825 after investors forget why it existed. History's lesson: People have short memories and even shorter attention spans.